Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Today's video starts with a story about a judge who thought neighborhood rules didn't apply to her, blasting music, trashing lawns, and waking up to a very rainy surprise dumped right back on her doorstep. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with a turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. Judge by day, party menace by night, until I took out the trash. A few years ago, I had one of those weekends that stick in your memory because of how ridiculous and satisfying they turn out. I live in a beautiful historic neighborhood. It's a community where people greet each other, mow their lawns without turning it into a production, and keep noise to a reasonable level. Well, almost everyone. There was one exception, a woman who lived a few houses down. Ironically, she was a judge. You'd think someone in her position would have a strong sense of community rules, decorum, and basic respect. But if this particular weekend was anything to go by, that wasn't the case at all. It started on a Saturday in late June. She was hosting a graduation party for her daughter, and by 11 o'clock that morning, the music was already blasting. Not just loud enough to hear, I mean loud enough to make my windows vibrate. Imagine trying to have a quiet cup of coffee while your walls are buzzing like a nightclub. I was sitting on my porch when she actually walked past my house. She looked me right in the eye and with this smug little smile asked, "Is the music too loud?" I thought maybe she was being considerate, so I said, "It's a bit loud." I expected her to take the hint and dial it down, but instead she shrugged, smirked, and walked back to her house without another word. That's when I realized the day was going to be long. And long it was. The music didn't stop. It went on all afternoon into the evening and straight past midnight. Guests spilled onto the street, shouting, laughing, and carrying on like they were at a frat party rather than a family celebration. It was impossible to sleep, impossible to relax. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the police showed up and shut the whole thing down. You'd think that would be the end of it, but the next morning when I got up early, as I always do on Sundays to feed the stray cats in the neighborhood, I discovered the true aftermath: garbage. Everywhere. I'm not talking about a few stray cups or a napkin on the curb. I mean plates, plastic forks, cups, and half-eaten food littering every lawn in sight. It wasn't just mine either. My neighbors' lawns were covered, and even the houses around the corner weren't spared. It looked like a hurricane of trash had blown through overnight. And to make it worse, it had started to drizzle. Nothing says good morning like soggy garbage disintegrating into your grass. I stared at the mess for a moment, furious, and then went inside. I grabbed a 13-gallon garbage bag and set out to clean it up. If she wasn't going to respect the neighborhood, I sure as hell wasn't going to leave it like that. It didn't take long before the bag was practically full, plates stuck together with half-dried sauce, cups half filled with warm soda, plastic knives and forks bent in half. It was disgusting. And as the drizzle turned into steady rain, I felt my patience snap. So I did what any petty, sleep-deprived neighbor would do. I marched right over to her front yard and dumped the entire bag onto her lawn. The rain came down harder as I walked away, and I'll admit it was one of the most satisfying things I've ever done. Later that day, she complained to another neighbor that someone had dumped garbage on her lawn in the middle of the rainstorm. She was apparently outraged, demanding to know who would do such a thing. That neighbor, bless their soul, looked her right in the eye and said they had no idea, but maybe it was because her party had been so loud and her guests so disrespectful. "What did you really expect?" they asked. She never found out it was me. She never hosted another loud party again. You didn't put garbage on her lawn, you just returned her belongings to her. That's what I'd say in court, Your Honor. I mean, there's loud, and it sounds like this one was loud, and she was an idiot about it too. Messy and sharing trash far and wide, shaking windows and houses down the way. She should have known better than that. Hell, any kindergartner should have known better than that. And our second story. Drunk ex-boss robbed us, so we nuked his home life on the way out. My boyfriend, 33-year-old male, worked for this guy that owned his own roofing company. I'll call him Tom. Tom really liked my boyfriend's work ethic and became really close to him, using him every day for work and even at his own home. We were also invited to his cabin a few times to hang out and have some drinks/play cards. The more we got to know him, the more we discovered what a drunken jerk he was. After about a year, it was negatively affecting my boyfriend so badly that it was causing issues at home. He decided he couldn't take Tom's abuse anymore and was going to stick it out for the current season and not return next season. When the next season came and Tom asked my boyfriend when he was returning to work, my boyfriend politely told him that he'd found work elsewhere and wished him the best. Now all of a sudden, drunk Tom's convinced that we have things at our house that belong to him. We don't, and tries calling my boyfriend, who doesn't answer because he's at work. Tom decides to show up at our house anyways. Well, no one's home. Tom also doesn't know that we installed security cameras. When my boyfriend gets home, he notices things moved in our yard, and so we consult the footage. Tom and his son lives with Tom, show up and take our large two-wheel dolly, our pressure washer, and a friend's leaf blower they let us borrow right out of our yard/shed. He also goes into our garage for several moments before coming back out, nothing in his hands, but we can't be sure about his pockets. My boyfriend and I are furious. He calls Tom multiple times with no answer. Tom doesn't text and eventually leaves him a voicemail to call him back. Tom calls back the next morning, unusually chipper, which sends my boyfriend into a rage. He tells Tom we're coming to get our things now and he'd better have everything outside when we get there. Tom pushes back, but my boyfriend tells him we have Tom and Tom's son on video stealing A, B, and C, and that if he doesn't cooperate, we'll go to the police and file criminal charges against them both. We leave immediately, and Tom's outside his home with our stolen property when we arrive. A lot of arguing's going on because drunk Tom refuses to own up to being a slimy thief. We told him he came onto our property when no one was home, and his exact response was, "Big deal." We told him he's not welcome or allowed on our property at all, anymore, for any reason. But Tom's still arguing, so as we leave, my boyfriend shouts so loudly, "Tell her about all the women who join you when you go to the cabin." Well, my boyfriend texted Tom's son as we drove away and told him that he's also no longer welcome on our property. Son's response wasn't great. Turns out his mother was home and listening to everything, and she heard what my boyfriend said about the cabin. F you, Tom. For those asking why not file a police report, we wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt and see if he'd apologize. But after everything happened and we found out his wife heard everything, we felt as if that was sweet enough. And we did get our property back at the end of the day. We did save the footage and can still report him if we decide to. Yep, F you, Tom, you slimy MFer. Showed his true character and what he thought of you instead of being grateful for your work and happy for you taking the next steps in your working life. And our next story. Went to a wedding, got mistaken for staff, got a marriage proposal, kind of. A few years ago, I had attended a friend's wedding. Beautiful autumn day. The ceremony was lovely. Everything went well. Reception time. I get to the reception venue on time, find my spot at the college buddies table, shoot the crap, and take advantage of the open bar. Early bird gets the worm. At some point, I noticed my phone wasn't on me, and I figured I left it in the car. I head out, grab it, come back. People are starting to trickle in, and one of the extended family members of the bride is this old lady in a wheelchair getting wheeled in by her old husband. I speed up ahead of them and grab the door for the two. "Thank you, young man." Of course, a few people were walking behind them, so I just kept holding the door and a few more until I finally got a break in traffic and headed in myself. Seemed like forever, but in reality, I was just there for a minute at most. Finally, I made it back to the reception room. I walked past the table where old lady and old man are, and they're just getting the chair out of the way for the lady. I grab the extra chair for him and move it aside. "Thanks, son. Would you mind fetching her a glass of water as well?" Yeah, why not? They're already seated, and the bar's halfway across the room. Went and got them each a glass, and they were very appreciative. Having been a waiter in the past, I sort of went into waiter mode and asked them if they needed anything else, to which he said, No, we've bothered you enough. We'll let you get back to work. Thank you, young man." That's when it clicked in my head. They thought I was staff. I didn't correct them, just wished them a great night and went back to drinking. After all the speeches were through and cake cut and meals are served and dancing started, I took a break to wander a little. The old man probably saw me doing wedding guest things instead of working. He waves me over to apologize and explain that he had thought I was working the event. I assured him no offense was taken and I was just happy to help. I ended up chatting with them for a good half hour, and they were just the sweetest couple. Turned out to be the grand uncle/aunt of the bride. Told me some great stories of their youth, too. I went back to celebrating with my friends after. When they left, I saw them head out, and I made sure to go and say goodbye. A month or so later, I'm hanging out with the newlyweds, and the bride mentioned that her grand uncle said the nicest things about me on their recent phone call, and asked her if I was single because they wanted me to meet their granddaughter/bride's cousin. I was seeing someone at the time, but I thought that was so nice of them. And our last story. HOA using our water and power for association property. We live in California and have an HOA. We purchased our home about 2 years ago. The real nightmare started when we learned our property was secretly powering and watering the HOA's so-called association property. We didn't find out right away. A few months after we moved in, an HOA rep knocked on our door. Just a reminder, she said sweetly, to keep the sprinklers running every morning for the strip of landscaping by the sidewalk. It's HOA-maintained property with the irrigation hooked up through your line. I blinked at her. Excuse me? You're telling me I'm footing the water bill for land the HOA claims is theirs? She nodded like it was the most normal thing in the world. Oh yes, there's been an arrangement with the previous homeowner. Developer's mistake years ago, but it works out fine. I laughed. No, it works out fine for you. Water costs here aren't pocket change. Why would I pay for your mistake? That's when she pulled out an amended CC&R I'd never seen before. It showed a sudden easement slapped onto our property for HOA use. Funny thing though, this amended version never came up during closing, and the copy my realtor provided said nothing about it. I told her flat out, if it's your association's land, then you run your own irrigation and pay your own bill. I'm not subsidizing your landscaping. The HOA's response? Threats. Letters claiming we were in violation. Notices of potential fines. They wanted me to continue paying for the irrigation of their association property daily at my expense, while I still paid the same dues as everyone else for landscaping maintenance. At the next HOA meeting, I showed up with a folder of documents, our CC&Rs, our closing papers, and the mysterious amended version they had handed me. I stood up, cleared my throat, and said, I do not agree to and will not provide utilities for association purposes at my expense, effective immediately. Even if you had an easement, and that's questionable, an easement only covers access, not consumption. You can run your own lines at your own cost, but you will not keep tapping into my water and power. The board president, Karen in all her glory, shot back, you're required to comply. Everyone has to make sacrifices for the community. I smiled. No, Karen, no other homeowner is doing this, just me. That's not a community sacrifice. That's exploitation. And let me remind you all, California law treats unauthorized use of utilities as theft. The room went dead silent except for the sound of her pen clicking. I shut off the irrigation valve that same night. Within a week, the HOA landscapers came banging on my door. You need to turn the water back on, one said. The grass is dying. Not my grass, not my bill, I told him, closing the door. 2 weeks later, I got a final notice threatening fines of $250 a day. That's when I filed a police report for utility theft and attached copies of my bills showing the usage spikes. I also sent everything to the county water district and the state's Department of Consumer Affairs, since HOAs are regulated under state law here. The real fun came at the next HOA meeting. I walked in with copies of the police report and handed them out like party flyers. You've been illegally routing utilities through my property, I announced. That ends today. I've notified the authorities, and if you try to find me, I'll add harassment to the list. By the way, if you're still charging other homeowners dues for landscaping while stealing my water to cover it, that's fraud. The board members suddenly couldn't make eye contact. Karen turned beet red and sputtered, "This is not how we handle things in this community." "Apparently, this is exactly how you've handled things," I said. "Now it's over." Last week, I got an email from the county. The HOA's been ordered to reroute the irrigation at their expense. They'll be fined if they don't comply within 30 days. And since they tried to threaten me instead of fixing the problem, the police forwarded my case to the district attorney for potential charges. The landscapers have already started tearing up the street to run new lines, and the HOA's paying the full bill out of their budget, which means all the dues-paying members now know exactly why their fees are going up. Wild. Community sacrifice doesn't mean your meter pays for everyone else's sprinklers. You did exactly what most people don't. Drew a bright line, shut the valve, and forced the HOA to own its mistake. The amended CC&R suddenly appearing after closing is especially gross. Weaponized paperwork with no disclosure. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.